Okay, it's just after 9, so I'm going to get started now. So hopefully you can see the slides. It says Next Tech Girls and Digitas. So big thank you firstly to Digitas for sponsoring the event and partnering with us on it today. You'll hear a little bit from a couple of women from Digitas later, and they'll be running a group exercise with you all. So today is actually International Women in Engineering Day. So we've also got 4 women in different engineering roles who you'll be hearing from throughout the event. So in terms of the agenda, I'm very quickly going to just explain what Next Tech Girls is, because obviously we're hosting today's event. If you've never heard of us before, you might not know what we do. I've got a quick tech careers quiz for you just to get you thinking about a few things about working in tech. And then we'll have a bit of Q&A with the 4 women engineers. We'll have the future of work group exercise, which will be led by the 2 women from Digitas. You'll have about half an hour to do that in groups of about 5. And then we'll have a little bit more Q&A at the end, and then that will be the end of the event. So just to get started, Next Tech Girls, we've been running since 2016, and our mission is to get more women in the tech industry. So we run online events and work experience placements aimed mostly at teenage girls, so secondary school girls, but our events are actually open to all genders. So I know we've got other genders on the call today as well. So hi everyone, and thank you for joining us. We do have a big digital skills gap in this country and in most countries around the world. So it's really important that we just get more people with digital skills. And then within those people, we're keen to get as many women as we can. So aside from events like today's, we also do run work experience placements. So if any of you have got work experience coming up, or if you're keen to try something out during the summer holidays, go on our website. Right at the bottom, it's got a link that says join our community. If you fill in a quick form, we'll send you emails when we have opportunities coming up. During the summer holidays this year, we're expecting to have a few different workshops, which will probably be half-day or one-day workshops with some quite exciting companies. Sky, for example, are one of the first who've come on board. So if you're interested in hearing about those, then it's worth signing up for emails, and then you can hear about them. A few facts about working in tech that I'm really keen for you to learn today, because we're all about busting myths. So firstly, you don't have to be interested in or good at coding to work in tech. I know a lot of people think that working in tech is all about coding. Actually, obviously, there are some people who do a lot of coding, but the majority of people who work in tech never do any coding. I worked in tech for a really long time and I never did any coding. And I know loads of people who work in tech who would not be able to code if you asked them to. There are so many other jobs in the tech industry that are really important, but you don't need to be able to code to do them. So that's the first thing. So if you've tried coding and you don't like it, you can still work in tech. Secondly, whatever your passion, you can pursue it through tech. So you've probably realized that pretty much every company now will have a website. Lots of them have apps. Lots will be using technology in lots of different ways. So whatever you're really interested in, whether it's sports or music or fashion or climate, there will be companies working in those spaces who have tech teams and will need people interested in tech or with different kinds of tech skills to work in them. You can earn a lot of money working in the tech industry. In my quiz, that will come up, so I won't give too much away now, but starting salaries in the tech industry are much higher than any other industry, really. And that is because we don't have enough people with those skills. So if you can gain some skills in the tech space, like I said, doesn't have to be coding, and a little bit of experience, then you can earn a lot of money. You can make a difference. So ultimately, working in tech is actually all about solving problems. It's about making people's lives easier. Even if you're working for a company that's selling products, you're trying to make it easier for people to access those products. And if you're working for the government, for example, you're trying to make it easier for people to access government services. So it's all about making people's lives easier, making things quicker, less stressful. And obviously there will be some organisations who are trying to solve big problems as well. So there'll be people looking at health issues within the tech space, climate, like I mentioned before, the justice system. You could work abroad or travel while working. This won't be the case, obviously, in every role, but a lot of tech companies, the tech industry in general, has always been known for being very flexible. A lot of jobs now, especially post-pandemic, are remote first or hybrid, which basically means you can kind of work from wherever you want. They don't really mind where you are, so it doesn't even need to be your house. You could be working from a cafe, you could even be working from another country, as long as you're able to join team meetings at whatever time you need to. So I know lots of people who have actually travelled while working in the tech industry. You might have heard of people calling themselves digital nomads, and that tends to be what they mean. It's basically as long as you've got a laptop and an internet connection, it doesn't really matter where you're working. Finally, there are lots of different routes into the tech industry, so there's no one way to get into tech. Hopefully that will come out in the Q&A later when you hear from the women, but it might also come out in the quiz. So again, I'm not going to say too much on that. So we've got a tech careers quiz now. If you have got paper and pens, you're welcome to write down what you think the answers are. Otherwise, maybe speak to the person next to you, have a quick chat about what you think it might be. No one's going to check your answers. I'm going to give you the answers straight after. There's only 5 questions, but it's just to start getting you thinking about a few things about working in tech. So the first question is a true or false? You need a computer science degree to work in the tech industry. Do you think that's true or false? We'll give you a little bit of time to have a think about it, maybe have a chat with the person next to you, see if you agree. And then we'll move on to question 2. Around what percentage of the tech industry do you think are women? Is it A, 10%, B, 25%, or C, 50%? So have a think. How many women do you think there are in the tech industry? Question 3. What is the average starting salary for a software engineer? So this is your first ever job in tech. You obviously know how to do a bit of coding because you've managed to get the job, but you've never done it before professionally. So is it A, £20,000, B, £35,000, or C, £45,000? This is your first job in tech as a software engineer. Next, question 4. How many tech job vacancies were there in the UK in 2021? These are the latest stats I could find. So this is how many jobs were being advertised in the tech industry in this country. Is it A, 100,000, B, 1 million, or C, 2 million? I'm sure you can agree that if it's any of those, it's a lot. It's a lot of jobs available. I think about which one you think it might be. Okay, last question. Oh, this says number 4, but it should be number 5. Sorry about that. That's my bad. Number 5. This one's a little bit more specific. When was the first crash test dummy based on a woman developed? A, 1977, B, 2005, or C, 2022? So the first ever crash test dummy was developed in the 50s, might even have been the late 40s. And was based on a man, so the kind of average dimensions and shape of a man. So this is when was the first one developed that was based on a woman? Because women get in cars too, right? So it's important to check safety for women as well. And that should be question 5. Sorry about that. Okay, hopefully you've had a bit of time to think about all of those. Maybe you had a chat, maybe written down what you think the answers are. I'm going to give you the answers now because I don't want to spend too long on this. I want to jump into the Q&A as quickly as possible. So question 1, true or false, you need a computer science degree to work in the tech industry? The answer is false. I might have given this away a little bit when I said there are lots of routes into the industry. So most people that I've worked with or spoken to haven't done a computer science degree. There will be people who did because they knew from a young age that that was what they wanted to get into. But I would say most people that I speak to, lots of them did degrees in other areas. So for example, I studied languages. I did Spanish and Italian at university. Lots of people will have done boot camps now. There are lots of companies. We work with one, for example, called Makers Academy, who run boot camps where you go to them for normally 3 or 4 months. You're there every day and they teach you completely from scratch how to code, how to build your own websites and apps and things, and then they help you get a job at the end. And lots of people will have done apprenticeships as well. Your teachers might have been telling you a bit about that recently. Apprenticeships, there's also degree apprenticeships, which is where you actually get a degree while working, while getting paid, as opposed to paying to do a degree. And obviously there will be people as well who've just kind of taught themselves the different tech skills and managed to get jobs that way. So it really depends on which job you're going for, but definitely don't need a computer science degree to work in the tech industry. If you really enjoy computer science and you want to get a degree in it, then please do. There are not enough women getting computer science degrees, so that would be amazing. But just want you all to know that's not the only option. There are lots of other options too. Okay, question 2. Around what percentage of the tech industry are women? The answer was 25%. So I think it's actually 26%, but it's close enough. So basically about 1 in 4 people working in the tech industry are women at the moment. But we know that of the population, about 1 in 2 are women. So this is why we're really keen to get more women working in tech. And there's lots of reasons for that, which I'll cover in a second. So number 3, average starting salary, 45,000. Now I said at the beginning, starting salaries are higher than the average for pretty much every other industry. And that is because there just aren't enough people with the skills. And companies desperately need them. So you can earn lots of money even just from your first job, which hopefully is exciting for lots of you. This one as well, how many tech job vacancies were there in the UK in 2021? 2 million. So you can see why they're paying so much for these roles, is because they desperately need a lot more people working in tech. So to try to fill some of those gaps, they're offering very high salaries. And again, I've put 4 here, but it should have been number 5. This might shock some of you. The first crash test dummy based on a woman was only developed in November 2022. So that's what, 7 months ago? Very recent. They've just started doing tests with it. Legally, you still only have to use a male crash test dummy, which means that that's what most car manufacturers will continue to do. But one based on a woman does at least exist now. However, as I'm sure you can imagine, it's probably going to take a while and quite a lot of testing before they get enough data to make changes to cars to make them safer for women. So there are lots of statistics that just show that if there's a car accident, a woman is more likely to get injured in that car accident than a man, and that's just because cars are not developed to be as safe for women as they are for men, because they haven't been using crash test dummies based on women. So hopefully in the very near future that will change, but this is one of the examples of why it's really important that we have more women working in the tech industry, because we want to make sure that the technology that we're all using more and more every day as a part of our lives is safe for everyone. And just works well and meets our needs. And for that to be possible, we need to make sure that the people that are designing and building and testing that technology can represent us as a society in all of our diversity. So that's really important to us. Okay, so interested to know how you got on. You don't need to tell me, but if any of the teachers want to let me know in the chat how hard maybe your students found that, whether it seemed like they got them all right or they couldn't get any of them, whether you had any shocked reactions to any of those, that would be very interesting to know. But we're going to move on to the Q&A now, so I'm actually going to stop sharing. And I can see a couple of our speakers already, so I'm just going to ask them all to put their cameras on. Yeah, I can see you all now. Perfect. So I'm going to add spotlights to you so that you're all, if I can find you all, so that you're all nice and big on the screen. And then I'll get started asking you questions. If I can find everyone, hang on. Here we go. Wow, one of the teachers says lots of the students in her class got 5 out of 5. I clearly did not make it hard enough. I'm going to have to work harder next time. I used to do a tech brand logo quiz, and I was told by students that it was not hard enough. So I stopped doing it. I even got some feedback that said, make it harder or take it out, which I thought was quite blunt. But I took their advice. So yeah, hopefully, even if you got them all right, hopefully you found it interesting. You learned a few things there. But But yeah, some teachers saying that they were quite shocked by some of the answers as well. So it's a good learning exercise, I think. Okay, I think I've managed to spotlight all of our speakers. As you can see, we've got 4 brilliant women with us today, who are going to be sharing a bit about their experiences of working in different engineering roles. So I think if we start by going round, and each of you just introduce yourselves, so your name, your role, your company, and then I'll start asking some of the questions that we got from the pre-event survey. So Anais, can we start with you?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for having me, Emily, on the panel. I'm Anais. I am a software engineer at List. List is a fashion aggregator. So we work with millions of retailers and high fashion brands. And my team is responsible for, keeping the website alive, building new features, and it's, super great adding features which lots of people can see. And I've been there around 2 years. And previous to that, I was working in the financial services industry. So yeah, it's a role that can transition into different industries, and that's what I love about my job.
Amazing, thank you. Chantel, we'll go to you next.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chantel. I'm currently a machine learning engineer at Sage, which creates accounting software. Most of my role is working with AI, lots and lots of data, and that's what I do. I got here through teaching. So I taught data science before, and then I decided I really wanted to get into more engineering. So I became a machine learning engineer.
Love that. So we've got 2 career switchers already. So hopefully that's interesting for the students as well. I know when I was at school, I assumed that whatever you did in your first job, you were stuck in that forever, because that's what lots of our parents did. But nowadays, that's just not true. Lots of people moving around. So that's really nice to hear. Maeve, should we go to you next?
Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be here. So as Emily said, I'm Maeve. I work in the cybersecurity industry. So I'm a product security engineer here at Moonpig. They're a card and gifting and experiences company. I help teams to build more secure features on our website. Day to day, I spend time identifying potential vulnerabilities. So when we say vulnerabilities, we mean any weaknesses in controls that could potentially allow hackers to do something bad. I work with engineers to fix these. I also work in building and maintaining security tooling, so tooling that might provide security alerts. And I also act as a security consultant for the rest of the tech and the wider business. So I'm here to answer any questions people have and to provide best practice guidelines on a range of security topics. When explaining what I do, I like to use the analogy of a house. If you have a house and you ask me to look at it, I'll walk around the house, I'll look at the different entry points, I may look at how I can break into the house and test things, I might see if I can gain access to your house, can I steal a TV, can I steal a laptop? And once I've done that, I will talk to you and make recommendations about how to make your house more secure, such as installing an alarm or making sure the front door lock is working properly. And that's exactly what I do for our website.
Amazing. Love that analogy. And I love the pig drawing behind you as well.
I also forgot to mention that I am also a career switcher as well. So I did civil engineering at university. I then worked for a big food and beverages company and I did their sales graduate program. And then I moved into cybersecurity. So as Emily has said, there are so many different opportunities, no matter what subjects you want to study at GCSE, A-level, or even university, you can always find a route into tech.
Amazing, thank you. And last but not least, Ebony.
Hey everyone. So I'm Ebony. I'm a hardware engineer at Sky. I do hardware and software. So my background, I have worked in a robotics company. It was a startup, and then I moved to Sky. I've been there about 2.5 years now. The actual product I was brought on to work on got launched yesterday, so it's quite exciting. It's a little camera. It's the first product I've had that's actually going into people's houses, which is fun. So yeah, and like day to day, I work in like R&D. So like we design new products, like take them through to delivery. Like loads of products get like scrapped, but yeah, this one actually made it out. Yeah, that's me really. I think I had more of a traditional route, even though like I didn't know I wanted to be an engineer. I didn't even know what an engineer was when I was 17. But I was kind of winged it and pretended I knew what my course was. And I was like, yeah, I know what it means. And luckily it worked out. So even though I did take a traditional route, it was a bit of a hope for the best. Yeah, so that's me really.
Nice. A couple of you have touched on this already, so I think we'll do this as the next question, which is what was your route in? So kind of what did you do at school, after school? So Ebony, should we go to you first? You said you took the traditional route. So what exactly do you mean by that?
So I did like my A levels, it was like maths and physics. I did fail them and resat them. So I did an extra year. And then I did electronic engineering at Coventry University. Um, when I read the prospectus, I didn't actually understand what anything meant. I was just like, yeah, mum, micro means small. It's like small things. And like I just kind of didn't know what I was going for, but I ended up like really enjoying it. But then I came out of that role and I was looking for either hardware or software roles because like with degrees now, even if you do hardware, you do coding modules. So I was just like, I'll do either. Ended up at a startup working in someone's house. Um, and then now I'm at an actual big company. So it was traditional, but a bit of a like winged it a bit and just hope for the best. Didn't really
Nice,
put
love
thought
that.
into my future.
Amazing. And Maeve, did you say that you did civil engineering at university?
Yes. So I actually did, yeah, general engineering and then specialised into civil at Durham University, so up north. And then I did, yeah, a sales graduate scheme at a food and beverage company. I really enjoyed it. I had some great experiences. I also got seconded to Asda's head office. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Asda. I worked with lots of different retailers, you know, like Morrison's, Tesco. It was a really great experience. However, I, wanted to explore the world of cybersecurity. I started becoming interested in it just by attending events like this event, getting to know different people, growing my connections, speaking to lots of people about what they do in the cybersecurity industry. And I actually then was able to secure work experience. I know some of you might be thinking about doing some work experience soon. And that was so beneficial because it helped me really understand what do people do in cybersecurity day to day. Because sometimes it's hard to know what it's actually like without trying it. I really enjoyed it. And then I was able to get a job through my work experience. And yeah, got my first role in tech in security. So that's how I got here today. I would definitely recommend, speaking to lots of different people, exploring different avenues, understanding what do people really do in their jobs, and really making use of any work experience opportunities that come your way.
That's amazing that you got your role through work experience. I love that. That's awesome. Great advert for work experience. So thank you. Anais, how about you? You mentioned that you worked in finance. So what was your route into that?
Yeah, so my, I guess, career hasn't been quite straightforward. I actually studied languages at university, and I was looking for roles within the legal industry. So I was looking for training contracts, I guess graduate programs, and then I sort of pivoted and fell into finance as an intern after I finished my degree at Edinburgh University in Scotland. And 6 months, I guess, into the role, I was exposed to, I guess, technologists within finance. So I was working for an investment management firm, and that's actually my initial exposure. And I ended up leaving the role to go traveling in South America. But unfortunately, that was cut short due to COVID. So I spent the next 6 months teaching myself to code, and eventually building projects and landing myself a role as a software engineer within finance. And then, last 2 years I've moved into a tech role where I am currently.
That's amazing. I love that you taught yourself as well. That's a great story. Which languages did you study out of interest?
So it's Chinese and Spanish.
Nice. Good choices. And Chantel, how about you? What was your route?
My route is on paper extremely traditional as well, but the way I fell into it was probably haphazard. So I studied sciences and English for GCSEs and A levels, and I wanted to desperately go into pharmacy and the medicinal healths and healthcare, all that kind of thing. But then I tried it for literally 1 month and I dropped out because I said this is not it. And I stayed home for until the next academic year, where I was thinking, what do I want to do? My father and I sat down and we just thought, computing? You like little robots? I'm like, yeah, sure. So we called the nearest university to my house, as in 1 bus away. And they said, if you can come down in 2 hours, you can get on the course. And we had to drive down and get into it. So I had no idea what computer science was. I thought we are going to make little robots and great websites. It wasn't really like that. And I found out that my focus wasn't like that either. I wanted to focus more on how do we increase like diversity, or how do we encourage more people before to get into it? Because I had never really heard of computer science. It was definitely a maths degree that you do and that the really smart kids do. So the fact that I just walked in because I was close enough, I was out of my depth, but then I realized that wow, this is actually not that bad. So like my dissertation was focused on how can we use robotics to encourage preschoolers to get into tech and things like that. So my focus was very much people based. Because of that, I wanted to teach. So I got on an apprenticeship because I also thought traditional route is not for everyone. Again, I thought it was my only choice, hence why I went to university twice. But I wanted to teach an apprenticeship because it's also an amazing, amazing route. I was teaching data science on an apprenticeship, really trying to get people super excited about data because for some reason I love spreadsheets and what data is doing for all of us. So I was doing that. And then I also realized I was kind of a little bit jealous of my apprentices. They're doing wonderful things with their data. I too want a project where I'm making amazing things. So I got a machine learning engineering role in which now I'm also contributing to the amazing AI effort across the world.
That's awesome. I love that. You've touched on this a little bit, so I'm going to jump to this question now and then we'll just move on to the team exercise, which is I'd love to get all of your opinions on this quickly. One of the questions which comes up a lot actually from students is, do you have to be really good at maths to be an engineer? That's what I was hoping would happen. You'll just shake your heads. So I think there's this misconception that any kind of tech or engineering role requires you to be really good at maths and to have like a maths A level. So it's really interesting to hear that you all disagree with that. Do any of you, I mean, obviously potentially with data science, do any of you kind of use maths regularly in your roles?
I can jump in quickly. So I was told from the beginning you need maths. I got a C in GCSE maths, I was trying to avoid it for the rest of my life. And then now I'm entering this place where everyone's convinced I would need maths, but I found out that it's not so much the math skills that they were looking for, but rather evidence of problem solving skills. So if I can prove that in another way, then I was great. So yes, people would say you need math to understand it, especially in data science where they're like, it's statistics. I realized I didn't need to understand stats. I just needed to understand problem solving and logical and critical thinking. That's what they were trying to get at, but they were using the language of you need maths.
That's so helpful. Thank you. I think we'll move on to the sorry, I'm just seeing we're getting a couple of questions in the chat, which is great. So teachers, if any of the students have got any questions off the back of the conversation we've had so far, we're going to move on to the team exercise now, but we'll come back for the last 15 minutes or so and have a bit more Q&A. So there'll be more opportunities to ask questions then. I have got a list of questions from the pre-event survey, but if there's any kind of burning questions in your class that you really want to get answered, then pop them in the chat. We'll come back to them later. So thank you all so far. I've been really enlightened by that, so I'm sure the students have as well. And as I said, we'll come back to you in about 30 minutes. So I'm going to hand over now. Hopefully we've got Gemma and is it Valeria? My brain went a bit then. On the call so that I can hang on, I'll spotlight you. So let me stop spotlighting our speakers just for a second. I can see some great questions coming up in the chat, and some of them I did already have on my list actually, so I'm sure we will come to those. Right, I can see Gemma, so I'm going to spotlight Gemma. Where's she gone? Here she is, and I can see Valeria as well. Second, because I've lost Valeria now. But always technical difficulties. Here we go.
Can you see me? Yes.
Yes, so you should both be spotlighted now. So I'm going to hand over to you just to introduce the team task. So hopefully, students, you've got printouts of the kind of brief, and you've got the future of work canvas. If you haven't, just have a listen to what Gemma and Valeria say, and hopefully you've got paper and pens, and you can just have a go at writing down some ideas. But yeah, over to you, Gemma and Valeria.
Cool. Morning, everyone. So we are Gemma and Valeria. We are from a company called Digitas, who essentially is a digital marketing agency. We have a whole range of different things that we do. So from like traditional marketeers and advertising and media through to sort of like more of that development engineers. We build apps, websites, and all of that fun stuff. So that's just a very quick introduction to what we do. And we do also host work experience through Next Tech Girls. So reach out to Emily if any of you are looking for your next work experience placement. That was just a quick plug. I'm going to now hand over to V, who's going to explain today's task. What I will say is there are some exciting prizes up for grabs that we will send out to the winning team and to your schools. So it is worth paying attention and giving it your best shot. Not that you wouldn't anyway. So yeah, V, I'll pass over to you to introduce what we're doing today and why.
Thanks, Gemma, and hello, everyone. As Gemma mentioned, at Digitas, we are always looking for ways in which we can improve the future of work. And of course, the way in which we work has changed so much over the past few years, and it keeps changing every day. But there are lots of assumptions being made. But what we are very keen is to hear from you what you think about the future of work, because you are the people that will shape it. So how do you think work will change in the next 5 to 10 years? How do you think technology will shape the future of work? You should have received these canvases with a few questions and boxes all around about the future of work and how it will evolve. And we would like you to work in groups of 5 for about 30 minutes to complete those canvases with as many details as you can, add sketches as well if you would like. And please let your imagination soar. The sky is really the limit here. There is no bad idea. Your ideas can change from working fully remotely to using headsets instead of laptops to bringing a robot with you at work. Really, no limitation. And that's pretty much it. Any questions before we get started?
One thing just to add on that is, as it is the National Engineering Week, Women's Engineering Week, we would also like for you to think specifically as well around how will engineering change in the future? Like, will there be people doing that engineering with things like AI and machine learning? Like, are there even going to be people doing that? Will it all just be doing it itself? So like, try and think of that angle as well. Like, what a different role is going to look like? How much of a role are you going to play as part of that too? So yeah, that's just a little addition. But yeah, any questions, let us know.
Okay, so thank you, Gemma and Valeria. If students have got any questions, let your teachers know and they can put them in the chat. I think we're all just going to turn our cameras off now. I'm going to give you just under half an hour, so I'm going to give you all till 10, and then we'll have our speakers come back and we'll spend the last 15 minutes just answering a few more questions. So if you haven't quite finished at 10 and you want to keep going, you probably can, as long as you're still listening and hearing what the women are saying. So yeah, we'll stop talking, turn our cameras off, give you till 10. We'll still be here. So like I said, if you have got any questions, get your teachers to put them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll see you again at 10. I'll probably let you know when you've got 5 minutes or so left, just as a reminder to wrap up. Also, make sure you put along the top of the canvas some kind of team name, so your teachers can identify if you win, they know who to give the prizes to. Okay, thank you all and see you at 10. Hi everyone, just a reminder that you've got just under 5 minutes until 10, so have a think about wrapping up your ideas. Make sure that you have put some kind of team name at the top, so that your teachers can identify you if you do win. And yeah, I'll see you again in a few minutes. I'm just going to start spotlighting the speakers again, so we can get straight into the questions at 10. Okay, it's 10, so I'm going to ask the speakers if you could put your cameras back on. We've got loads of questions in the chat. Some of them are quite similar to some of the ones that we got through on the survey. So I'm going to just dive straight in. Lots of things about being a woman in engineering and in the tech industry. So it would be great to hear from you whether you feel potentially kind of undervalued as a woman, if you've ever had any kind of challenges that you've had to face just by the fact that you're a woman in your industry. Would anyone like to volunteer to answer that one?
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in. I'm actually fortunate to have not experienced anything like that, and to have been, you know, accepted and I feel valued as a woman in cybersecurity and in the industry. I'm lucky that I work for a company that really champions diversity, inclusion, equality, and females and women working in the workplace. My advice would be, do your research on companies. Do they have good values? Do they promote values? Do they promote women in the workplace? Do they attend or support events like these? You know, what do they do? How do they foster an inclusive culture in the workplace? And those are the sorts of companies that you want to be working for, people that are really championing great values. And so I would say, you know, do your research, look at companies who really want to promote inclusivity and diversity. And that, from my experience, I've always done that. And I think it's really worked for me. And I found myself in great workplaces and part of really cool communities. So that would be my advice.
Jump in. I've had slightly different experience. Like, I've not had good experiences within engineering. Like the first company I worked for, it was like horrible 2.5 years. And like when I handed in my resignation, the boss was like, the reason I've treated you the way I have is because you're a woman of colour and this is how you're going to get treated in the industry. You need to get used to it. So but the thing that got me through like times like that was going to events like this. Like I really went to networking events for women because I was like, I love the job I do. It did get to the point where I was like, my mental health is bad. I need to go to a different company. And like Sky is a lot better. There are still issues. Like I'm going to be honest, there are still issues, but I think I don't know whether it depends what discipline you're in. I don't know because like engineering, like we're in like a different office and it's like very male dominated and it is like an older generation. And there's little things like I've got a colleague who's black and they get us mixed up, even though like we're different. Like there's things, it's just silly. And there's like things like that. And I think it is because it is still like a new environment. And I think one thing that is important is how the company responds to that. So like even though it's like not perfect, they're still willing to learn and like sit with you and really try put in effort to make it make a difference. But if things are tough, I found going to different events outside of work and like building like a network just out of work. So you speak to different women who support you and like men go for it as well, like who are different skin like everyone does have a different struggle. So it's like going to different events, different networks and just speaking and like listen to how they got through it. And I think the worst thing is feeling like you have to leave the job. It's like if you enjoy what you're doing, you shouldn't have to leave your job. Like the company should change and like you can really action and like push to like make a difference within that company. And I think that's also like a good thing as well to look for as well.
So sorry that you had that experience, firstly, Ebony, but thank you for sharing that. And I think both you and Maeve have touched on some really important points there, which is often it comes down to the company that you're working for and the kind of culture that they have, and also just the power of kind of communities and networks. And there are so many out there now. Lots of companies will have their own. I think Maeve, you mentioned about kind of having their own internal women in tech networks, for example, where, you know, women who are in similar roles, who maybe are in teams that are dominated by men, can get together and kind of share what they're going through and support each other. But there's also loads of external organisations. Obviously, we're one where we're trying to build a community of not just girls who are interested in young people who are interested in getting into tech, but also women who are currently working in the industry. And there's lots of others as well who run events, mentoring and things like that as well, which I think can be really helpful. I've got a similar question around kind of gender in the industry, which is around pay. I'll answer this slightly first, just because I used to work in government. So I did some work around, people have asked about the gender pay gap. So there is a gender pay gap in every industry, sadly. But I'll tell you the main reason for that is the way the gender pay gap is measured is they take an average of what all the women in an organisation are earning and the average of what all the men are earning, and they look at the difference. In most organisations, especially tech organisations, most of the people in those top levels who are getting paid the highest salaries are men. So when you're looking at an average, they're going to be coming out higher because you've just got lots of men on higher salaries and a lot more women potentially in lower roles where they're getting more entry level pay. So it can be a little bit misleading. At the same level, again, it will vary. Lots of companies have tried hard in recent years to make sure that they are paying people the same. But a big part of why there might be a difference in people's pay where they're doing the exact same job, same level, comes down to negotiating. So this is not me stereotyping. There have been lots of studies done into this. Two things I'm going to mention because I think it's really important for you to know this from a young age, and hopefully you'll remember it when you come to apply for jobs. So firstly, when you apply for a job, they'll have what's normally called a job description, which will talk about all the things that you might be doing in that job, and then it will often have a list of what they'll call essential criteria, and they're things that they want you to be able to do to get this job. So it's to let you know this is the type of person we're looking for, this is the kind of experience we want you to have. Studies have shown that women will generally only apply when they feel they meet 100% of that criteria. So they'll look down the list and they'll think, oh yes, I can do every single thing here, I'm going to apply for this job. Men will look at the list, and as long as they meet about 50 or 60%, they'll apply. Now, that's mostly a confidence thing, but my advice would be, as long as you meet about 50 or 60%, apply. The worst thing that will happen is you get no response. But maybe they'll see what you've achieved and what experience you have, and they'll think that you're a good candidate, and they'll ask you in for interview, and you could get that job. So don't let not being able to tick every single thing off put you off. The second point is around negotiating your salary. So again, lots of studies have shown that men tend to be much more confident if they're offered a job and they're told, we're going to pay you, let's say 30,000, they're much more confident going back and saying, would love to take this job, but I'm looking at salaries more around 40,000. And a lot of companies, if they want that person, which as we know, there's loads of vacancies in the tech industry, they desperately need people with skills. You know, you've got through an interview, they've got to a point where they're offering you a job. It's likely if they can afford it and they want you, then they will at least meet you halfway, but potentially they'll give you what you want. Women tend to be less confident around things like that and will often just say yes to the first offer because they're worried that the job will get taken away if they ask for more and the company doesn't want to give them it. So that's my second piece of advice, is don't be afraid to negotiate on salary, because I think that's why you sometimes will get some differences. I don't know if any of you have had any experience of that, where you've been aware that a guy in the same role has maybe been earning a little bit more than you.
I can offer a little bit of insight. I don't think it's because I'm a woman, therefore they pay me less. I do think, unfortunately, with the stereotype that we're not as confident. But what I found in, I guess, my relatively short career, so having been a software engineer in the last 3 years, and what I've learned in the past is that it helps massively to also find advocates and sponsors. Unfortunately, in an ideal world, we'd like to be promoted and be given pay rises based on merit, so based on your hard work. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. It's sometimes very much who has visibility of the work you do. And I found that even though that I'm the only female software engineer in the team, I've always been the only woman, and also working in finance, I was also the only woman in my team. It wasn't so much that I was getting paid less, but perhaps I wasn't as vocal about my achievements. And I think it's really, really important when you, I guess, all go into the workforce, is to note down of all the small pieces of work that you've been working on, because all of this will build up. And I've noticed that, you know, it's very much about how you present yourself, how others perceive you, and, you know, whether you're a likable person. That's also an important element besides your work. And it's also, I guess, when it comes to applying for jobs, understanding what the transparency is. But yes, it's a really uncomfortable topic, negotiating. So what helps is actually, you know, highlighting your achievements, because that will then speak on your behalf.
That's really good advice, thank you. And we've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try and squeeze in a couple more questions. So first one is, what made you want to work in engineering? Should we go to you first, Chantel?
It was, okay, so engineering for me, I think it was definitely because of data. So I just wanted to be a lot closer to the first stage of the AI movement. That's all it was. You know, it was a buzzword around the time I was looking at jobs, and it was like, well, I don't really understand these really big systems. So let me start right at the beginning to really get a real grip on it. And that was all it was. I also understood that I didn't have to be just an engineer. So even though I love engineering, I love being behind the computer, I was fortunate enough to be vocal about the fact that I don't really like doing that all the time. And I think because of that, I could combine like communications as well. So in my role, yes, I'm an engineer, but I'm also like creating data content to try and, you know, talk to it about everyone. So I became an engineer because I had that flexibility. I wasn't just pigeonholed into one. It was more like people accepted that I have knowledge about this subject, therefore I could do a lot more with it.
Love that. Ebony, you've been nodding along. What got you excited about the idea of working in engineering?
I think it was so like when I went on a university visit that they did for like schools that were like disadvantaged or whatever. So I went there, it was government funded, and I soldered together, and I'd never soldered before, a little heartbeat monitor, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. And then that's when I chose my degree, and then that's kind of why I think I went into like research and development. So I always say it's just like I get just like build things and like get pieces of tech and try to get it to work with something else, and it feels like it's like hobbyist, like it's a bit like playing with Lego, but I get paid. I'm like, this is fun. That's why I prefer like research and development than like delivery projects, because then you've got to like actually, get it out. Whereas like I get to like play around. I'm getting paid just to kind of like play and demo things. I'm like, look at this. This is cool. So I feel like that's what's quite fun.
How about you, Annalise? What made you want to switch from finance to software engineering?
So I was actually interested in finance, but I think I really enjoy the prospect of building things and how it's super transferable in other industries. I mean, right now I'm in fashion. The next job I could potentially be working in, the healthcare industry, or working, in semiconductor industry. So I think it's super, super varied. The reason why I actually love where I am right now is that I get to build a product that millions of people get to see. The moment I get to push a feature online, I get to show that to friends and family, and I think that's a really cool aspect, how you can, one person can make such a huge impact, and that's what I really, really like about, I guess, software engineering.
Love that. And finally, Maeve, you obviously studied engineering at university. So what was it that got you interested in that at a young age?
Well, I really liked maths and physics, actually. And so I thought, I can combine both by doing a degree in engineering. But then as I sort of kind of completed that course, I realized that I also loved working with people and developing relationships. And that's why I also wanted to have a go at doing something within sales. What actually got me interested in cybersecurity is, technology is changing all the time, and actually the bad people, hackers as well, they're always developing their tools, their methodologies, and so working in cybersecurity, you really have to stay on top of what's going on, and always being keen to learn and develop your skill set, and I love a challenge, and so I would encourage you, if you really like problem solving and learning new things, I think cybersecurity and tech in general is a really good field for you to consider. Also, what I think is great about tech is, yes, you've got that technical side. So, I love developing my coding skills and my cloud computing skills, but there's also a massive space to develop your communication skills. Often you need to translate something quite technical to people who maybe don't have as much technical knowledge. You might need to do some training and awareness, particularly in cybersecurity. Oh, I think my lights have just gone dark as well in this room. But so there's lots of opportunity to develop your communication presentation skills, and I really enjoy that part of it too. And then finally, I think as sort of the other women have mentioned, you really have the opportunity to make a difference, and I really get that in cybersecurity too. I really like the feeling that I'm protecting people, protecting customer data. It gives me a real sense of satisfaction, and I have a real purpose going into work every day. And so I'd also encourage you to think about, what's your purpose, what drives you, what do you really enjoy doing, what would you like to be remembered for, and what would you, how would you like to make an impact in the world and in your day-to-day life. And I think you can really do that in the tech and the engineering and cybersecurity space.
Love that. Thank you. We're just over time, but I'm going to keep going for a couple of minutes as long as that's okay with the speakers, because we are recording, so we can always share this if schools have to drop off. I'm just going to have one final question because I think it's very relevant to the team exercise that people are working on. And Chantal, I'm going to go to you first because I feel like you might have some insider info on this, which is a student has specifically asked, going forward with all the robots in the industry, and I guess sort of AI as well, where does that leave the jobs for us? So what do you think the future of work is in terms of how much will humans be doing, how much will machines be doing?
Well, the answer to that, the straightforward answer is, I guess there's no future if we keep going forever. However, I think we need to bring it back into perspective, as in the time where robots are taking over our jobs won't be for a little bit while. We've still got some time. So if you still want to pursue something, go ahead. Also, you have to remember there is like one thing that a robot can absolutely try, but they can never do, and that is human creativity. When we talk about AI and all this kind of thing, a lot of it is pattern recognition and sort of pattern regurgitation. So it's taking what we've done before and reproducing that. Meanwhile, as human beings, we are creating all the time. So in whatever role you're in, you can still create. So even if a robot is now, I don't know, doing like the manual tasks, you can still create a better way to do that manual task, and there's your job role. So I think the fear of robots taking over your jobs is there, but it's not so much as taking it over, but more changing the role that you're doing. And it won't be for a while. So still pursue anything you want to do, you know. You can still create code. ChatGPT is not ready to take your job just yet.
I love that idea actually, that it could potentially make our jobs more creative. I think that's, I mean, as a person who enjoys creativity, I find that quite exciting. Does anyone else have any ideas of what you think the future of work might look like?
I used to work in robotics, so built robots, and that was like a bit of a moral dilemma. Well, it wasn't that much of a dilemma, but it was for agriculture, so moving and handling in the field. And like, I think the thing is with that kind of work, it's one of the low paid jobs that really help people. So that was a bit of a thing. It was like, oh, people's are now taking people's jobs, but then it is like the moving and handling. So it's just taking, like Chantal said, the repetitive job tasks. Like you still need people to work there and do like everything that requires brain power. Like no, like just like moving things. Like we don't need. It's so hard to get something to actually pick the fruit off that we couldn't get something to pick the fruit. It was better for a person to do it, but to load the thing and like automatically do it, so they're not having to like get up and move, and they can keep doing the job. So I think it's a thing where I think films make it a bit scarier, like everything's gonna end and we're not gonna have any work, but it's normally the jobs that like you really don't want to do, and we're not as good at technology yet. Like I wish we was that good, but we're actually not that good. Like there's some conspiracy theories, and I'm like, we're actually not that good at technology, and I wish we were. But like when you're working it, you realize like things that people think is like a little thing is so difficult to do. So it's like we're actually not there yet. Maybe in the future, maybe like probably after I've died, but I don't think we're going to see it yet. Like I wish we did, but we weren't.
That's reassuring. So we're okay for now. And if anything, it will just help us be more creative and do less of those kind of boring, repetitive tasks. That sounds good to me. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up there. So I just want to say thank you so much to all of our speakers. Thank you to Digitas for sponsoring today's event. Thank you to all the teachers for signing up, to all the students for taking part. I hope you found it interesting and inspiring. If you enjoyed what you heard today and you want to learn more, Next Tech Girls is on pretty much every social media platform, so please follow us if you're on Instagram or TikTok. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I think that's it. We're at Next Tech Girls on everything except YouTube, which is at Next Tech Girls Official. And yeah, we'll share videos from women like the women you've heard from today talking about their careers, answering some of the questions that you've asked already about how they find working in the industry, how they got into it, what qualifications they have, all that kind of stuff. We also share videos of the girls on our work experience placements. If you're thinking you might be interested in that, it's a way for you to have a look at what that might look like. And like I said, if you go on our website right at the bottom, it says to join the community. community, and that way you'll receive emails about other events that we do and other kind of fun workshops and work experience opportunities that we've got coming up. So thank you all so much. I've really enjoyed this session. I think this might be our biggest event yet. I'm going to check the numbers afterwards and I will let you all know. But we might have all just made history together, biggest ever Next Tech Girls online event. So thank you so much. Happy International Women in Engineering Day. And I hope to see lots of you students working in engineering in the near future. Thank you.